Hey guys, thank you for joining me on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting podcast. I have my wonderful guest, Kristen, here. Kristen, thank you so much for being on here with me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Kristen, let's just dive in here. Let's just say where in the world are you coming from here? Where are you located?
Yeah, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Kind of born and raised in the South, worked all over the country, but made my way back here when I had kids and have kind of set up roots here just south of
Mhm.
Nashville.
South of Nashville. Do you partake in all of the Nashville festivities there? Any sort of Nashville
I think
hobbies you like?
I think Nashville became very cool after I moved back. So like Nashville hot chicken and all the
Right,
country music, like all of this was here before, but it's very
right.
trendy now. So it's,
Yeah.
it's the marriage capital and the bachelorette capital and all the
Mm-hmm.
things. So
Mm-hmm.
I did get married here. I guess that makes me
Right.
kind of a tourist. So, but anyways, no, it's
But
it's
yeah, no,
growing.
so
Yeah.
yeah. You're beyond the whole Nashville trend. You're
Yes.
way it's like in the past. Gotcha,
Yes.
gotcha. I've only been there. I think I've been there twice, so and I did partake in the Nashville festivities, so that's
Well,
why I
you
asked
have
because
to.
I'm a tourist.
You have to.
Awesome. Okay, so do you have any hobbies, speaking of, besides for the Nashville? I just assume it would be Nashville activities, but any hobbies you've got?
Yeah, so I after having kids kind of was like trying to, find myself, find my groove again. And so I've been doing Orange Theory a lot, which I love, and then
Hmm.
I'm training for the Nashville Half Marathon next month.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I've
How
run
awesome.
it once before and I was much younger
Right?
and did not have kids. And I said, I will never do this again.
Right.
And here I am. So I'm
Yeah.
going to do my 13.1 miles and it's been fun because now that the weather's getting nicer and it's
Right.
kind of gives me a reason to get outside and,
Yeah.
listen to a podcast, listen to a book, get some time to
Yeah.
myself. So
Are you
that's really fun.
following any sort of regimen on training, like the couch to half marathon?
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
already had a little bit of endurance stamina, so a lot of the apps will have you kind of do like interval training, so run for 4
Yep.
minutes, walk for 2, and so I
Yep.
am using one of those 13.1 like training apps.
Right.
But really a lot of the training at Orange Theory just like on the treadmill, if you
Mm-hmm.
can run 23
Yeah.
minutes straight, then you can run 45 minutes straight, then you can, make your way up to 2
Yeah.
hours. And so um just kind of working on my outdoor runs because running on a treadmill is very different than running outside.
Totally.
And the
Totally.
Nashville half has a lot of hills. It starts
Mm.
on Broadway, so you get to see like
Mm-hmm.
all the honky tonks and there's like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
stages. And so it's fun and
Right.
a lot of energy.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely gonna hurt.
It's gonna I know I've only run one half marathon and I said the same thing. I'm never gonna train for this again. We'll see.
Correct.
And I have done Orange Theory. I did go through a phase of Orange Theory and it really kicked my butt. So
Yeah.
I commend you. And I was just talking my last podcast interview, uh Jessie was talking about doing CrossFit. So she's doing CrossFit now. And I was like, yeah, I did that too. It's like
Yes.
probably about the same amount of time as I did Orange Theory until I was like, okay, my body just doesn't like this anymore. So I
Yes.
chickened out. So I high five
It's
to
a
you. High five to you.
it's a good release for sure, especially
Oh
for
yeah.
anybody in healthcare,
Oh
kind of
yeah.
just
Oh
getting
yeah.
that
Totally.
getting all of that out is
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
CrossFit,
Well,
Orange
thank you.
Theory, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah, anything you can get the stress out. I play hockey, so that's how I get my stress out is playing ice
Like ice
hockey.
hockey? I
Yeah, like ice hockey. Yes, I know. It's
so
crazy.
cool.
I picked it up when I was 25 years old and I'm 51 now. So I've been playing for 26 years. It's still 26 years new to me.
But you're in California, right?
But I'm in California. I grew up in San Diego and I didn't know
Cool.
what hockey was. And then
Yeah.
met a boy and he was playing and then I had no kids for a long time and I met my ex-husband playing hockey, and then it was just a hockey family. And so all my best friends, my best girlfriends, all play hockey, and we travel around the world. Oh, well, not around the world. Some of them travel around the world, but travel
Yeah.
across country for tournaments. Yeah, it's fun. That's how
Oh
I
my
get my
gosh,
stress
that's
out.
awesome.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
kind of
that.
crazy. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I'm still clinging on to my youth. So,
Yes. Yes. Hey, well, you have
okay.
to.
So I know exactly. Well, fighting the age. Yeah, we'll see. I keep my body again doesn't necessarily agree with that, but we're gonna keep fighting through that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's digress into nursing. Now, I really am looking forward to hearing your story as far as you getting into nursing and where you're at now, but the kind of in between. And I ask this because your path is a very similar path to what my oldest daughter wants to take. So I would love to hear your nursing story, how you
Yeah.
got into it, and where you ended up.
Sure. So my mom is a nurse and she was a NICU nurse. And so all growing up, I kind of had that, that caring aspect, like very interested in the doctor. And
Yeah.
I played travel soccer growing up. And so I had an injury to my foot and I had to have surgery when I was 10. And I met my CRNA and I thought she was the coolest person in the world. And so it was like, oh, I can put people to sleep for surgery. And I actually got really bad PONV. So I got admitted, had to stay in the hospital overnight, was vomiting for about 24 hours. And not to say that my CRNA wasn't great. That was just, I didn't
Right.
know that was
Yeah.
going to be my course. And just kind of learning about different options of nursing and knowing that I wanted to be a CRNA and kind of using my own personal experiences to grow, um, led me straight into I went to a 4-year BSN program after I graduated high school. So I went to the University of Tennessee. I stayed in Knoxville. I did cardiac step down for a year. I wanted to go straight to the ICU, but that was kind of, I graduated in '08. It was a little harder back then to just go straight to ICU. You needed like a
Right.
little bit of like ER experience or floor experience. And honestly, that's probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever had. Like I remember it very well. I made $18 an hour. I had 6 patients at the beginning of the shift. We had no break people. I discharged 6. I would get 6 more. I mean, we had patients coming from
Yeah.
cath labs, so they would be getting pacers. They had sheaths in. We would have to pull sheaths. I
Hmm.
remember my first rapid response, my first code, my first patient
Right.
death. Um,
Right.
so that job in Knoxville taught me a lot of, I
Yeah.
don't know, time management,
Okay. Yeah.
mental
Totally. Yep.
mental
Prioritizing. Yep.
toughness.
Hmm.
Yes,
Hmm. Hmm.
mental toughness.
Right.
Um, and then my best friend and I moved out to California. And so I went
Mm.
out, I worked at UCLA, got a
Hmm.
job in the
Hmm.
cardiothoracic ICU. So that was great experience, one of my favorite jobs I've had. Um, we were I got to go on procurements and we would
Hmm.
do heart and lung transplants, a lot of VAD patients,
Yep.
fresh cabbages. So really, really sick patients and great experience leading into
Yeah.
CRNA school.
Yeah.
Um, and so my first year I applied to Kaiser School of Anesthesia out in
Hmm.
Pasadena. I did not get in. I had a terrible
Hmm.
interview. I was, great on paper, great GPA, extracurriculars, all the
Hmm.
stuff, and then just kind of botched my interview. Which is now
Hmm.
why I interview prospective CRNA students to
Right.
help
Because you.
them. And I connected with a great CRNA who started this platform, nurses teach nurses. It's Teach RN now.
Uh-huh.
And you can kind of mentor people. And it's amazing
Oh
because it
wow.
gives these young kids, young or
Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
a great outlet to
Mhm.
practice, and not to say, I mean, you could go to CRNA school when you're 50,
Yeah.
it just gives you a way to practice and say, this is kind of what I'm thinking for this answer. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Oh
Uh,
wow. What a great. Yeah. No, I had never heard of that. That's great.
Yeah, so she's doing great things doing that. And that
Mhm,
has been really fun this year doing
mhm.
that. Anyways, and so I ended up getting in my second year. So it was a 2-year program. And I've been working as a CRNA. I worked in Dallas, I work in Nashville. Um, and that has been a long time now.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? It adds up. It goes by really, really fast. And you started out when you were young, right? You said you went
Yes,
right into nursing school and started
yes,
working. So you were young when all of that
yes.
experience was happening. So you're still young
Well,
because,
I
when
I
we start
appreciate
young, yeah, no. Um, I appreciate you sharing that story because, like I said, I'm doing this podcast because I want to get to know people, but also, also selfish reasons. I've got a daughter who wants to go in the CRNA route, which I think
that.
is, I had, because I am from California. I've never worked in the Kaiser system. So my experience was I had never even met a CRNA up until the last probably 10 years. So it is really now California is really embracing it as well. And it's really this up and coming, I see more and more young nurses wanting to go that route. And I think
Sure.
it's just so brilliant. I always tell my daughter I'm not as smart as she is. It's perfect for her. I could never have done it. Pharmacology was not my it was not my strong suit, nor reading an EKG. So yeah, for me, CRNA, not so great. My daughter will be great. So
They could
I
teach you all
appreciate
that in school. They could
that's
teach you
true.
all that.
I suppose, but
Y'all could go back together, do like
oh, that's
a
true.
tandem
Yeah,
situation.
yeah. I don't know. I think I'm at the end of my I've done just about everything. I'm gonna leave that to her and I'm gonna celebrate her and cheer her on.
Yes,
And now I know who to send her to before she
yes,
has an interview because I think
yes.
what a great thing that is. I'm sure you definitely learned a lot from, you know,
Oh,
bombing.
yes.
Did they tell you that you bombed it or you just had a feeling like you just
No,
knew?
I just had a feeling that I didn't, I was 25 at the
Yeah.
time. I just had
Yeah.
a feeling that I didn't portray myself as who I really was professionally. I wasn't confident sitting in a room with 25 strangers answering questions. And I
Right.
think it took that extra year of work. And that honestly, that last year of work was my favorite year. I got to be charge
Mm,
nurse and, participate in more,
yeah.
codes and open chest situations and crashing patients
Right.
onto ECMO. And, I
Right.
think it just took a while to kind of build that confidence.
Yeah.
And I always tell the people I meet with, like, all you have to do is tell your story, right? No one knows
Right.
your story better than
Right.
you. And
Yep.
so if
Absolutely.
you can just take a deep breath and tell your story, they're not
Hmm.
going to memorize your resume. They don't care. They
Hmm.
just want to hear who you are.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
I think I was trying so hard to be somebody that I wasn't because I was
Right.
nervous.
Right.
My
Right.
second year, I had a very different perspective, and so it was a lot easier to
Mm,
go in there and say,
yeah.
"This is what I do."
Right.
Um, and
Right.
that's all they wanna
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, that's good advice. I love that. Okay. So how long have you been working as a CRNA now?
So I graduated in graduated nursing school in 2008. I graduated CRNA school in 2014, so I've been out 10
Mhm.
years.
Wow. Wow. All
I've been
right.
out.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Wow.
Okay. So then you've taken this route into the medical legal side of things. How did that come about? How did that show up in your world?
Yeah, I think because I knew I wanted to be a CRNA my entire life, I worked and I worked and I worked towards this goal and then I reached the goal, right? And so it was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, I don't want to, I have a lot of CRNA friends
Mm-hmm.
and I think that everyone just kind of struggles with that. Like, oh gosh, we worked for so many years to
Right.
get where we are. What's next?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think some people do go back and they'll teach, and some people will, kind of take more of an academic role in an academic
Mhm.
center. And so I was kind of struggling after I became a mom and the pandemic hit, like what's next? What do I do? It's healthcare is kind of an unforgiving system for women and mothers, and I've
Right.
worked in it as both. And I
Mhm.
remember not having kids feeling, well, why does she get to leave just because she has kids? And
Right.
then post
Mhm.
children,
Mhm. You
well,
understand
why
why.
would
Yeah.
this person leave? Why would this person leave early when my kid's sick with 103 fever? And,
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
it
for sure.
it's not a very forgiving world. You can only
Mhm.
have a certain amount of sick calls, which if you've ever survived a winter flu season in a cold state, you know that your kid is
Mhm.
going to be sick more than 3
Right.
times. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I just kind of started doing some thinking, like what does life look like after this pandemic? And I started
Right.
just kind of researching, like, what else can I do as a CRNA?
Mhm.
Like, do I want to get my
Mm.
doctorate? Do I want to teach? Do I want to? And honestly, it just kind of popped up. And I was like, oh, I didn't know people did legal consulting.
Mhm.
Hmm,
Mhm.
what's this?
Mhm.
And it kind of just one thing led to another. And I was very much like, I don't want to be an expert witness. I don't want to sit through a deposition. That I only will just kind of consult behind the scenes. And so the first
Yeah.
year I
Mhm.
really just did behind the scenes stuff. Um and then I was like, someone asked me like, "Hey, well, would you read this case as like a CRNA, not just like as a nurse?"
Mhm.
And I said, "Sure." And then it was like, "Okay, this is what we're going to do now." And it was kind of like
Right. You got,
I got
yeah,
my
the fire lit. The fire was lit under you. I totally get that. And I know that you probably felt this way because we work in very similar environments.
yes.
I know that for me, when I first decided to go down this road, I actually got a lot of pushback from the surgeons that I work with.
Yeah.
And because they don't understand it, they just assume that I will be working for the enemy, because in their eyes, they have been on the other side of that
Right.
for, depending on how long they've been in practice, they've been on the other side of it. So they didn't really see the side that we see. And so I got a lot of pushback from the medical side on, like, why would you do that? You're working against us. And so I've actually had to spend a lot of time educating them as to, no, no, no,
Right.
no, no, this is what it is. So I'm sure that you probably had some of a similar thing, and you, especially in your position, um facing, the other side, right?
Right. I think that there is, I think it's just what you said. It's lack of education. There's a
Yeah.
stigma with it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it, I cannot change the medical legal system. Right.
Right.
I understand that. Um, but I also say this all the time, and maybe it's something I shouldn't say, but there's a reason we carry medical malpractice insurance, and
Hmm.
it is to protect us. And there are many different kinds of mistakes you can make. There are many different scenarios that you have no control over, but all you have to do is uphold the standard of care, which is what we're taught in school. We don't really walk around work saying, like, oh, I'm going to do this because it's the standard of care. That's just the standard that you're held to, right? And
Hmm.
so if I put a breathing tube in someone's esophagus, that is not necessarily negligent unless I don't identify it, right?
Right.
And so
Yep.
if I identify it, I change it, I intubate them correctly, and I keep them from having an anoxic brain injury, then I've done my
Hmm.
job, right? Because I've
Right.
met the standard.
Hmm.
Um, you know, people have bad days, people make
Yes.
bad
Right.
decisions, and
Right.
lawyers don't know what it's like to be in those situations
Hmm.
when things go very south very quickly. So it's very hard, no matter what side you're working on, to describe the reactions that are happening in your body, what is happening on the monitor, what is, especially in the operating room, things are very high stakes when,
Right.
a surgeon gets a bleeder and you've dumped liters of blood in seconds.
Yeah.
It's not what is the standard of care?
Right. Right.
Like
Right. Yeah.
it's
Yeah. No, absolutely.
it's a different, operating in a hospital is very different than really what takes place in the medical legal system, and I just kind of look at it like you're an advocate for just like, "Hey, this is what we do. This is how I was trained." Yes, this person, vomited on induction, but we can't prevent that from
Right.
happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
do things to keep certain people safe, but you're not necessarily, um, I don't know. I just don't look at it the way that you're
Yeah. No,
like,
I love your perspective. I love your perspective.
it's
Yeah.
just kind of like, yeah, this is just what we do when we go
Well,
to
there's
work.
a there's a human aspect to it. I mean, you can check all the boxes, but sometimes they don't act accordingly. I mean, we had something recently that happened that was like, whoa, wait, when has that ever happened to any of us? And there was nothing. Nobody was negligent. It was
Right.
just a fluke. And then you're dealing with humans who are dealing with the fluke. And so I love your perspective is that everyone's human, and like you said, if you don't identify the negligence and handle it, then yeah, of course. But here's how
Right.
the standard of care is that there is some um fluctuation. It's not black and white. So
It's not, and it is very hard to, during depositions to explain that. It's like,
mm-hmm.
yes, I would do this if this happened. I would do this, but these things are happening so quickly. We have plans A, B,
Yeah.
C, D, and you're right,
Right.
it's not black and white. And so it kind of takes a fine-tooth comb with every case that you get. And every case that I'm reading, I always look at it from the opposite side to
Mm-hmm.
see, would I have done something different, or what will
Right.
someone say to what was done, and I make a list and kind of go back and forth and try to build both sides of the case so that I can
Yeah.
truly understand what happened. But it's never attacking a healthcare professional. It basically is saying, this is what I would have done different, and this is how to prevent this going forward, or this is how to make this better, you
Right.
know, the next time,
Right.
right? I
Yeah, and,
mean,
like,
that's
and
what a
that
lot.
pulls in the education piece. You're talking about educating. I mean, that's what we all do as nurses too. Is we educate. We educate
Right.
a lot.
Correct.
Um, I appreciate you sharing that, and I do. I absolutely love that perspective. What would you say surprised you the most about this side of it? I mean, is there anything that took you
Mhm.
by surprise that you were like, okay, this is great, and then, but whoa, I didn't really expect that.
Yeah, I have enjoyed uh, working with attorneys all over the country. I do get very impressed with how much they can learn and know
Mm.
about certain cases, especially if they kind of niche down and are only doing birth injury or, you
Mm.
know, nursing home or,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Um, but I am kind of surprised. There was a deposition I had in the the counsel that was deposing me um started out very pleasant, and I've talked to other people who have served as experts, but I was a little surprised how nasty the communication
Mm.
kind of turned,
Right.
and unprofessional. There was a lot there started to be some yelling amongst the attorneys, and that may be normal. But I am
Right.
skipping a day of work to stand
Yeah.
up for fellow
Yeah.
colleagues and
Sure.
kind of say, and it's like there kind of has to be a different, more professional way to speak to someone and kind of get their side of the story. But I do get that it's it's a game of chess, and it's
Right.
um kind of part of the game, but it is a little unfortunate that it turned that way because it got very awkward.
Right, right. Yeah, I can imagine. No, that would, yeah. I mean, and I don't know, the operating room can be, I know I've been in it for many years and it can be that sometimes, but nowadays it's much better than it used to be. And there are those moments where you're like, okay, do we really need this? So I can imagine you sitting there being like, do we really need this?
Right.
So yeah, that would surprise me as well. So I
Right.
appreciate that.
Right.
Um, how did you? I guess you already shared how you started. You launched your business when someone handed you some work to look at, and then you were totally hooked. And so
Yeah.
you do mostly expert witness now.
Yeah, I would say last year I had a really busy year kind of doing all genres of
Mm,
nursing,
mhm.
doing a lot of just kind of medical record review and merit
Okay.
reviews and like, is there anything in this case? What should have
Yeah.
happened? Um, I have not, and this is, shame on me. I have not done as much marketing this year as I need to. And so last year was a very good, very busy year because I was hustling. I was
Mhm.
marketing, I was using certain programs to help get emails out and kind of doing case referrals. And now I'm just kind of letting social media and referrals bring my cases in. And so
Yeah.
it is a very seasonal type of work as well, where I feel like lawyers are very busy in the spring and very busy in the fall, and then things in like summer and winter kind of fade. And
Mhm.
so it feels like, okay, well, when things get slow, I'll work more shifts. It's a
Right.
little bit
Yeah. You kind of riding
of
the
a
wave
roller
now.
coaster. And some of these
Yeah.
cases take years. And so I'm in so
Hmm.
many different stages. And so I really have to rely on my lawyers because everything in states, it's all done differently. So some states you're
Right.
writing expert reports, some states you're not, there's all
Yeah.
different kinds of I guess different strategy and rules and regulations. And so I just kind of have to hang on to my lawyers to say, I'll talk about the nurse anesthesia stuff, you tell me about all the law stuff because I don't know any of
Right.
that.
Right. Exactly. That's the new language for you. Yeah. No. Um, I love that. So now you're basically going based on referrals, which is probably what you really prefer anyways, right? I mean, to not have to hustle and market yourself is kind of where you've met that, like, oh, this is where I want to be. Because who really does? I mean, there are people that like the hustle, but also to be able to do this, and actually it just shows you how good you are and your services are, that you have referrals, you have people coming back to you for more and respect you. And that's really probably what everybody's goal is. I know that's my goal as well, is to
Right.
ditch the hustle, you know.
Right.
Ditch the hustle. There is a part of the hustle that I enjoy as a business owner, entrepreneur, whatever. But
Right.
there is also a point where you're like, okay, it would be great if just people, if I just my work stood for, for me, and then you live on a referral base. And so um I commend you. I give you a high five. I always say that, but for doing that. So congratulations to you on your success in that.
Thank you. I think that LinkedIn has been a really nice community, especially with legal nurses and even, physicians who serve as experts. I think there is
Right.
always a stigma as well with marketing yourself as an expert. And I know
Mhm.
that, the opposing counsel will always kind of grill you on that. But the thing is that medical legal cases cannot progress without healthcare professionals
Right.
and if you don't know who the healthcare professionals are that are willing to serve as expert witnesses, how will a case ever be tried? And so you do unfortunately have to have that element of marketing to
Yeah,
say,
right.
I'm willing to do this. But a lot of times people, and I know people at Vanderbilt have been approached by attorneys and saying like, hey, would you read this case to say, a lot of times it can just be a peer review, or you never
Mhm.
really know. So sometimes opportunities just kind of fall into your lap.
Fall into
And
place, yeah.
sometimes people are like, yeah, YOLO, let's see what this is.
Right. Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
people aren't interested, and that's okay. But the LinkedIn community has been great because, saying, okay, I know you do OR, and people
Mhm.
message me all the time, like, hey, I have a question about, like, do you guys do this in the OR? And then it's like, oh, hey, would you mind looking, and so I think it
Right.
is a really nice supportive community of
Yeah.
people who do referrals and kind of pass things off to say, like, let's get this case into the proper hands, because you do want it
Right.
reviewed by someone who has that experience.
Right, right. And what better way on a platform like that where you actually have your credentials there? I know for me, I most of my work has been through email marketing, but I know the value of LinkedIn because I've met so many amazing legal nurses that have been incredibly successful on LinkedIn. And obviously there are plenty of attorney clients out there. Um, what would you say for someone, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but for someone who hasn't really seen the success that you've seen on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, what would you say, what would your advice be to someone like that, as far as, when it came to marketing yourself there?
Yeah. I think it takes a little bit of time and confidence
Mhm.
to kind of let your social media build. I
Mhm.
remember I didn't even have a LinkedIn before 2022,
Mhm.
and I had 0 followers, and it's like now I have a little over 2,000. I mean, that even to friend attorneys, look up medical malpractice friend connect, whatever it's called.
Right.
Um, that took a lot of courage, but
Mhm.
it's not like I mean, I've sent out thousands and thousands and thousands of emails, over 10,000 emails, right?
Right,
And
right.
so that in itself, I think, built up enough clientele
Mhm.
to then kind of branch
Sure.
out to social media. Um, but I would just say stick with it. You
Yeah.
can't send out 10 emails and expect to get a case. It
Yeah,
takes
of course.
thousands. You're going
Yeah.
to have people respond to you and be
Yeah.
hateful. You're going to
Yeah.
have people send unsubscribe in big
Oh
letters.
yeah.
I had a guy tell me I had a guy tell me that I was annoying him, and I was like, "I hope you have a
Mhm.
blessed day,"
Yep.
that's
Yep. I had one of those this week. He was like, uh he said, "Go away forever, please." And I was like, I said, "I certainly will. Have a
Oh,
wonderful day." I was like, "Oh, that's the best one. Give me a good one.
go
Go away
away
forever, please."
which is just so wild. I mean, people on LinkedIn get very upset by people, in mailing them, and I'm just like, it's
Oh
so
yeah.
easy to either ignore someone or tell them you're not
Yeah.
interested,
Yeah.
to like
Yeah.
actually have that like elevation in cortisol and like
Yeah.
have to scream at a stranger like go
I
away
know.
forever.
I know.
That
I
says
know.
nothing about you, and that only
Yeah.
speaks volumes about him,
Yeah.
because you're just like,
Right.
gosh, I'm sorry you're having such a bad day,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Like
exactly. Yeah,
it's
exactly. I
because
will
it has
say
nothing to.
no, no. It is the exception. I will say,
Right.
when I ask my question to myself of like what surprises you the most is actually the opposite. I've actually gotten quite a few emails that say, I don't need your services, but I wish you the best of luck. And I'm like, wow, that was really
Oh,
nice.
that's
And actually
nice.
I get a lot of those, or I just get,
Yeah.
unsubscribe, but it's very rare that they're like that. So that's why when
Right.
those come across, I'm like, I'll bring it on.
Right. Well,
But yeah,
yes,
I've been
and
really surprised at how nice they are.
I guess that is what I would say, is that for the most part,
Yeah.
99.9% of
Yeah.
people have been really kind. that one
Right.
deposition and that one email, like
Right.
so annoying,
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
little surprising,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, they
um
stand out. They stand out
yeah, they
because
do
they're
stand
the
out.
exception. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
And
For
I
sure.
I think as any business owner, entrepreneur, if you don't get those types of responses, you're probably not
Hmm.
hitting the right nerve, or you're not
No,
on the right
no,
track. And
exactly.
so
Yeah.
you got to keep working until you at least get
Yeah.
one of those.
Yeah. Well, there's a book called Go for No, and that's exactly what it is. It's like your goal is actually to get the no's so that you get the yeses. And that's the whole purpose. If you don't get a no, chances are you're not going to get the yeses either. So
Right.
there's part
Exactly.
of that. So it's the
Exactly.
same thing holds true on LinkedIn as well, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. So, what is one thing that you wish that you knew before you started going in this legal world?
One thing, I think I spent a lot of time and money on all the stuff at the
Mm.
beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I filed my LLC, I
Mm-hmm.
did my website, I did all this stuff. I fronted it with a lot of money, and I
Yep.
probably could have dialed some of that back and just focused on building connections,
Right.
having conversations with other
Mm-hmm.
people who are kind of
Mm-hmm.
going through the same thing. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need a lot of capital or money to kind of put into it. When I was getting, the
Right.
website designer and all this
Right. The
fancy
business
stuff,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and you truly don't need that, especially and my business kind of took a turn, right? Because initially I was just behind the scenes, and then I started doing expert work. And to do expert work, you need zero anything.
Yeah.
You wouldn't need a website if you didn't need it. You
Right.
would just need kind of um connections, and calling a couple medical malpractice
Right.
attorneys and just talking to them and telling them,
Yeah.
who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
And so I probably would have just spent a little more time building those connections and
Right.
less money on
The
GoDaddy, maybe.
yeah, I was gonna say less money on the business fluff. I like to call it the business fluff. Okay, so
Business fluff. Less
the
on the
biggest
business
right,
fluff.
right, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I get it too. Is because you're excited, you've got a business going, and that's what you
What?
see other people have, and so you assume. I will also say that
Yes.
I was kind of surprised at the same thing when I had done the expert witness. I had done one expert witness case, and I've also sought expert witnesses for some attorney clients. And what I found that was very interesting was that the email addresses that I was getting were Gmail accounts. And I was
Yeah.
like, you have a Gmail account? Like everybody, or a
Right.
Yahoo account, or a SBC Global account, or whatever. And I was like,
Which is her
wow,
personal
it's
email,
just
yeah.
so basic that I was really surprised to see that. But that's exactly how it works. It doesn't need to be there's no
Yeah.
business fluff,
Yeah.
which is really,
No,
really kind of refreshing, actually. So I'm
yep.
glad you brought that up. Okay, so this is really kind of my last question. What do you see for yourself in the next 5 years? And the reason I asked that is that years ago, I was asked that question when it came to a business that I ran. And I shared my answer, and I shared it very reluctantly because it was like this, like, long shot goal. And I remember sharing this, and it was on video. And then about 3 years later, it happened. And so when I look back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I made it happen. Those goals were exactly what I made happen, but I was so nervous about saying it, putting it out there, that I like to ask that question so that in the future, you can come back and say, oh, wow, I was right. I did it. Whatever. What does that look like for you, like the next 5 years?
Wait, what was your goal? What was your thing?
Well, okay. So in this business, my goal was to quit my day job and my day job was nursing. And I did, and my kids were little. My kids were little at the time. And so 3 years later, I quit my day job and I was home with my kids when they were in junior high. And I was home with them for 3 years because of this business I built. And I was so nervous about saying it. And I go back and I mean, that video is actually up on YouTube too. And I hear it in my voice. But it was something I'm so proud of. I just set that goal and it was so scary. And I beat the goal by 2 years. And then, I mean, but I was so young then. Now it's like, oh, 5 years is nothing, So 5 years seems like from here to there seems like, oh gosh. But then looking back at 5 years, you being, a CRNA for 10 years, like you look back, that's 2 of those 5 years,
Right.
It goes by fast. So what does 5 years look like to you?
In 5 years, I would like to be living at the beach. Okay. I have to be back at the beach. Mm-hmm. And I think following pandemic, I realized that life is very short and I want to spend as much time as possible with my children. Mm-hmm. I don't want to miss a soccer game. I don't want to miss a dance recital. Right. And that there is no healthcare job or medical legal job or anything that it will ever be more important than those 2 little humans of mine. And so
how old are your kids?
4 and 2.
Yeah.
So
I totally get that.
I want to soak up every minute of that and have nightly family walks on the beach.
Right. All right. There you go. It's out there.
There you go.
I appreciate you sharing that, indulging me in that. I know. And I look forward to looking back and like going, yep, see, there you go.
You did it.
It's totally doable. I mean, it all is totally doable. So
it is.
Well, I appreciate your time, hanging out with me and having this conversation. I hope that it was enjoyable for you. I mean, I'm glad that everybody kind of got a better idea of who Kristin is and your background and what you've shared. I love the fact that, you've taken this long journey and yet it's still seems fresh. And, I don't know. I just really love your perspective on things too. So I appreciate you sharing that as well.
Thank you. Yes, this was fun.
Awesome. All right. Until next time.
Bye-bye.